Okay, I've turned the stream on, so what's going on? Good people in the chat. Who's in the chat? We've got Marcus, who was first in. Yuanzi's having lunch. I've been told to go to sleep, which I will say. And Liam is also in the chat already. So, hope you guys are doing well. Hope your weekend's going well. As per usual, get started with the stream and stuff in about 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, yeah, just hang out, I guess. I'm gonna just take a look at CubeComps.com just to see kind of what's been happening this weekend. It's something I like to do each Sunday or Monday. Just go on CubeComps, check out competitions which look interesting, and look at some results just to keep in touch. Like, I follow speed cubing pretty closely. And I don't know that there'll be too many other people that kind of go onto CubeComps and like look at basically every competition and the results there. So yeah, pretty keen. Liam just got back from wake surfing, up at 6, out by 6:30 and back in at 8. Nice, nice. That sounds very healthy. I wonder what the delay is on this. There was the India Nationals this weekend, and it looks like the 3x3 final is happening just now. I know a few of the names in there: Shivam, Akash, Bhargav, but none of those guys are in the lead. There's also a competition which Mikhail Pleskovic won over in Switzerland with a quite nice average of 7.4. Pretty good. Peter's in the chat. Hey Peter. What time is it in WA, Washington? Oh, it's 9:51 AM. Ooh, that means that Max Park's competition might be starting soon. He's got a competition today. Let me check the schedule. Oh, yeah, looks like Max is doing 6x6 and 5x5 pretty soon. Time in California. Oh no. Wait. Time in. Oh, sorry, I got the time zones wrong. Yeah. I typed in time in Washington and it redirected me to time in Washington, DC, not time in Washington State. So I was going to say, that doesn't sound right. Showdown's in the chat. How are you? Anyone who's just arriving, just going to get started with the stream in normal time, 12 o'clock my time. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Just got to do a couple of things. Play this upwards in the meantime. back to the pre-stream CubeComps browsing. What other competitions are on here? There's one in Taiwan, but I'm not sure. Oh, who's competing? Kai Wen Wang is competing. He's the guy with the 6.51 official average, I think. Wait, what's his official average? It was really good. 6.51, fifth in the world from Taiwan. What's he done this weekend? Ooh, not bad. He's got a 7.07 average in the final. It's quite fast. What else? There's one in Poland. Who's competing? No one's super fast at 3x3 here. Mikhail Zhavuski seems like he messed up the first round, but he should be able to win this comfortably. Peter's qualified for nationals for feet at his competition yesterday. Which competition was that? I imagine it was the Colorado qualifier. I'll just quickly check. No, not the Colorado qualifier. Perhaps a different one. The Big and Blind Minnesota? No. That's an upcoming competition. But well done on that, Peter. Gaston Spring, let's see. Oh, and you got second place in the final as well. Not bad, not bad. I think it seems like a pretty foregone conclusion that Daniel Rose-Levine is most likely going to win 3x3 with feet at US Nationals this year. He seems to be, yeah, just way ahead of everyone in practicing feet. Just trying to center the camera. All right, we'll get started in about 4 minutes or so. Yuanzi, who are you referring to with regards to nice results in blind events and FMC? And Liam asks, do you have any plans for Midwestern competitions this year? So Midwest is like, in the US, is what, like Ohio and Midwest? Yeah, I'm not sure what states there are, but I'm going to talk about this once I get started on the stream. You guys might have seen the West Coast Cubing Tour video that Chris Olsen put out. Essentially, there's going to be a series of competitions in July on the west coast of the USA, so that will be quite fun. I'm not sure if any of them are going to be necessarily in what's known as the Midwest. I think it's just Western USA, but it's around that region, I suppose. The guy I mentioned from Taiwan, Yuanzi says, Kai Wen Wang, I don't know that he did. Oh, he has nice FMC and blind results on his profile. What's he got? 26 single. Ooh, 32 single for blind, 41 average for blind. That's quite good. Yeah, he's got better than me at. He has better results than me at free blind. 32 single, 41 average. That's not bad. Fahim says, I finally reached. I'm glad. All right, we'll get started with everything. In a couple minutes. I put like a brief schedule there, but I don't know necessarily that it'll be exactly like that. Like, we'll see how things go. All right, gonna check. Let's check one more competition before we get started. we've got past competitions. There's a competition in Canada. There were 2 competitions in Canada, but I don't think any of the super fast Canadians attended. No, I guess Canada's quite a big country. There's one in the Philippines. I wonder if, no, not Leo Borromeo. All right, let's get started with this month's stream. R says hello in the chat. Okay, where's my document? I should close all these CubeSkills tabs before I get started. Close, 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 close. Alrighty. Welcome everyone to the May 2018 CubeSkills Livestream. It's currently 10 AM New York time on May the 27th, 2018. Doing the stream on a Sunday again, Sunday night my time. There seems to be, I guess, the best time slot, so I might continue with this going forward for streams, but maybe mix it up here and there. I think it works pretty well. It's midnight in Australia, so kind of been a long day, long weekend, but that's all good. We've got how many people we got in the chat today? A bunch. We got a bunch of viewers as well, which is cool. So if you've got questions and stuff, feel free to post them, I guess, throughout the stream. I have some stuff sent in from emails, but not too much stuff. Not too many questions sent in this month, so we'll see how we go. In terms of time, I might keep it a little bit shorter, on the shorter side today, depending how we go with questions, because I've got to wake up for something early. I kind of scheduled this and then something came up tomorrow. But if we're on a roll, then I'm more than happy to just keep streaming and answering questions. But yeah, we'll see how we go. If you're a new member or if you've been supporting the website for a little while, I guess thanks very much for your support. Once again, more than happy to help out with individual coaching and that sort of thing. That's, I guess, where I think I provide probably the most value. So feel free to email me anytime with questions and that sort of thing, and particularly the Solve Critiques page. Feel free to send in videos of yourself cubing. I haven't had too many videos since last month's stream, so yeah, once again, more than happy to do that. Okay. One brief thing which came up, I think it was last month, and then I got an email about it this month as well, was that a couple of people maybe didn't get the email notification that I send out about the live stream time, and I'm not really sure why that's happening just yet. I've told them like check their spam folder and that sort of thing, but not too sure on exactly what's happening there. So I'm going to talk to the web developer and we'll try and figure out what the problem is. But yeah, a couple of people have been missing the notifications for the streams. So just in future, I just post it on the front page in the upcoming section about a week out from the stream. So just check there, I guess, towards the end of each month, and it'll be there in case you missed the emails. All right, so first up, I've got a bunch of, I guess, cubing news, and I guess more specifically just a bunch of like world records and that sort of thing that have happened since the last live stream. So I had a competition after last month's stream. I think it was the weekend after that, and managed to get quite lucky in 3x3 round 1 and get 2 PLL skips, which is definitely not the first time. That's probably the second time that's happened in my 3x3 rounds. The very first solve of the competition, I was kind of a little bit shaky, but it was like a pretty solid solve. And once I got to my last layer, I kind of recognized that I was going to skip. So I did my algorithm and I got a PLL skip, and it was 4.9. So it's kind of really nice and easy way to start the competition. And then on the third solve, had an even easier solve, and managed to get a 4.22, which was, it was pretty good. And I guess I very much felt like, and I think a fair few people felt like the 4.59 between me and Steve was quite beatable in terms of like, the number of competitions that top cubers go to these days. It kind of really felt like the 3x3 single was up for grabs at 4.59. And I guess it's just a matter of, like, single records are always a matter of luck, but they're always the ones that kind of go viral on YouTube and that sort of thing. So that was kind of fun and nice to get that. And similarly to previous single world records, they kind of go viral on YouTube and that sort of thing. And there were a couple of TV shows that I watch in Australia that actually emailed me and did a couple of things there. I shared on my speedcubing Facebook page. There's a video on this kind of nightly news panel show called The Project, and it was a fun little segment. And then there was a quiz show also that I watch each week in Australia, and I did like a guest video question sort of thing. So that was fun. But yeah, the 3x3 singles, it's a fun one to get. I definitely wasn't expecting it. What happens these days in the first rounds of competitions here in Melbourne is my dad, because his name's David, he goes in the first group of 3x3, and I'm always in the second group because they do it by first name and my name starts with F. And so what generally happens is my dad asks me to film all of his solves whilst he competes in the first group. So I do that, and he's obviously pretty slow and doesn't practice. So he's always the one that's holding up the group, and he's the one finishing on the last solve and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of spending 10 to 15 minutes, videoing him with his with the camera and not having too much of a chance to warm up. And whilst I was doing that, I was just trying to keep my hands warm and try and warm up a bit before that. So in 3x3 first round, I really wasn't expecting that. But particularly after just spending 15 minutes just filming my dad. So yeah, that's all luck. The rest of the competition, there were no not really many good results. I don't think. Yeah, kind of after the single record, I kind of try it. Don't really care about what happens in the rest of the comp because it's already that's already happened and it's all been fun. Okay. Nothing in the chat. So what else has been happening? Max Park has been obviously just continuing to just destroy competitions and get ridiculously good results. I'm 100% sure he's going to break the 3x3 average sometime soon if he just gets 1 or maybe even 2 PLL skips in an average, or just does a ridiculously good average. He got another sub-6 average last weekend, and he's competing again today. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of eager to see how he goes there. The one that was a bit controversial was his 6x6 world record. It's kind of, I don't necessarily agree that the regulation around this world record is particularly useful. So basically what happened was he got the 6x6 average world record, and for 6x6, because it's mean of 3, all solves are counting, and the middle solve, his worst solve, when he was doing the inspection, he kind of touched his camera, and there's a regulation which says you're not allowed to touch the camera. And the precedent for that is that people get their solves DNF'd. So because that precedent existed, I guess that's why it had to be disqualified. And I don't think that, I think that the regulation probably does more harm than good. You would think that, I don't know, it's very complicated. Ideally, you don't want to have too much discretion in regulations and, have delegates decide whether people are cheating by touching their cameras, but it's not very practical to be touching your camera to get any sort of advantage. So it's, it is what it is, but I'm sure he'll, the 6x6 world record previously was 1 minute 25, and he got a 1 minute 22 average. And he's competing in 6x6 again today, so the current record is 125, and I'm pretty sure he'll just destroy that again. So in terms of losing the record, I think he'll get it back again pretty simply. Sophia asks in the chat, do I have a link to the other show I mentioned? I don't have a video link. It was quite a short segment, like 30 seconds. So it wasn't like a big piece. What else? What else has been happening? Cubing news. Multi-blind, Kamil from Poland and Shivam both got very, very close to breaking the record. Shivam was 1 cube off, and Kamil got a corner twist on his multi-blind cube. So the guy from Poland, he got 41 out of 42 cubes, and his last cube was off by a single corner twist, which has happened previously in a world record attempt. But yeah, he was off by 1 corner twist, which is kind of, yeah, a bit heartbreaking. He said he felt it happen during the solve, so I'm sure those guys will get better results very soon. And then the last big one, I guess the last big one was Kian Mansour. Got the one-handed average world record, 9.54 in a competition in Canada, and that one's been a long time coming. He's been practicing one-handed very, very hard for a long time, and he uses the Roux method, which I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but I think it might now get to the stage where probably to be world class, to be like, you know, super like dominant or like, you know, challenging for world records in one-handed, you basically might need to know and use the Roux method. I don't know that, yeah, like there's many advantages to using the Roux method specifically for one-handed. Basically, it's just that you don't have to do rotations, and the moveset is quite nice, and it's more efficient than CFOP. And so using that to your advantage, yeah, I feel like the Roux method is going to be almost necessary for one-handed in the future, not just yet, to be like really, really up there. That being said, we'll see how Max responds. I'm sure he's the kind of guy that would see that record and just go nuts with practicing to try and beat it, as it seems he does for many other things. Showdown asks, "Hi Felix, Indian Nationals ended today and I realised that throughout the competition I had shaky fingers which made my solving unstable. Do you have any tips on how to prevent this?" So I guess the main thing is, I guess what I'd say is I've been doing competitions for 10 years and I still get shaky fingers. So I don't necessarily have any tips to prevent the shaky fingers aspect. But there are definitely things you can do to help calm yourself down and, like, despite having shaky fingers, still perform decently. And so I have a module on the website, which is the competing module. Basically, there's stuff. Let me just get it up. There's a specific video in there called during a round. So the module is called competition advice if you just go into CubeSkills tutorials. But the stuff, the last video during a round is basically talking about what you can do, like whilst you're actually competing, to help calm your nerves a little bit and try and do a bit better. I guess one thing that's quite critical if you have shaky fingers is having really good hardware. So if you have a cube at home which like doesn't cut corners very well, or you feel like locks up sometimes, any of those problems like will definitely be exacerbated if you go to a competition and then try and do the same sorts of finger tricks whilst having shaky fingers. So yeah, hardware is going to be very important. That's what I've found recently as well, like particularly now that, you know, I'm turning faster than I was previously and I need to like try and reduce lockups as much as possible. I kind of really need to be confident in my hardware that it suits. And then in terms of, I guess, trying to reduce nervousness during a round, what I do is just have like a pre-solve routine. I just kind of sit down, take a second, you know, warm up on my practice cube, turn on my GoPro, and then take a deep breath and go. And that's just something that's like really automatic and I've been doing for a long time. One big thing about improving competition performance is that you just need to try and go to as many competitions as possible just to get used to the competition environment and that sort of thing. Because yeah, you'll definitely find that over time some of that kind of new competition nerves. Some of those new competition nerves will definitely reduce. Okay, back to the cubing news. All right, so I talked about some world records and that sort of thing. I think Max also got the 4x4 average world record between last time and this time, which is again like pretty insane. He had a few parodies in there as well, so yeah, he's good. He's good. So a couple of things that have come out since last time as well are the new 6x6 hardware. So people are always interested in, I guess, kind of new hardware and how that'll affect things. Specifically on 6x6 hardware, there's the Qi Shadow 6x6 and the Moyu Aoshi GTS 6x6. I have both of them. I've definitely heard people who really like the Aoshi GTS magnetic version. And I've heard plenty of people talk like ridiculously highly of the Qi X-Man Shadow. And to be honest, they're both really good. Definitely, for me, an improvement over the Yushin Red M. But the one that I'm using at the moment is the X-Man Shadow. I've got a bunch of PBs on this thing, and I think like out of the box, I had to tighten it a little bit because I felt it was a little bit loose, and I had some lockups, some kind of like 5x5 style lockups where the centers get dislodged, which was a bit of an issue. But then after tightening it was a bit better. In terms of how it feels, people have said it's basically feels like a Qi 5x5, but just translated to a 6x6. Like it's really good. It's a really good improvement. And I'm sure 6x6 hardware could still get better, but for now, like having this sort of upgraded hardware is fantastic. So if you're interested in my opinions on the Qi Shadow and the Aoshi GTS, they're both really good. The Qi Shadow, I think, has slightly better corner cutting, but it's a little bit slower, and I feel like it has more of a tendency to get those like big kind of lockups where you have like pieces getting dislodged or rearranged. Whereas the Aoshi GTS, the corner cutting isn't as good, but it's quite fast. And if you're someone who turns very accurately and wants a fast cube, then Aoshi GTS is very solid as well. But I guess as always, like you should try and, before buying a cube, you should try and see if you can try both of them out, either at competition or somewhere like that, because that's the best way to, I guess, discern what you like. Peter Preston says, just waiting for the Haze 6 from Yushin, then the 6x6 hardware will be perfect. Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin has talked about his big cubes, his big cube line with Yushin, and I guess he basically said like he wouldn't release a cube unless he feels like it's the best on the market. So I guess, and yeah, I get you, like you wouldn't really want to release a cube unless you feel like it's the best on the market. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. But for now, like the Qi and the Moyu 6x6s are fantastic. And yeah, one of the I guess pros. Someone asked about sponsorship, not via CubeSkills, just via YouTube. Someone asked about sponsorship, and one of the benefits of, I guess, being sponsored, for me personally, one of the benefits of being sponsored by GAN is like I only have to use their 3x3. And I can really just like be completely neutral on like using any sort of other 6x6, or like not be unbiased when using like 6x6s or 5x5 or 7x7 on that sort of thing. Like I don't use any Moyu cubes at the moment, but I can basically just choose between Moyu, Qi, Yushin for all the other stuff. Don't really have to worry about, I guess, any pressure from sponsorship there. That being said, I have a GAN 460. It's a 4x4, which came out some stage recently. I got the one which is stickless. It's better than the one I had previously. It's still not going to be my main, but I can see why some people might like it. But for me, turning very quickly, it kind of locks up too much, particularly between wide moves and outer layer moves. The design is cool, and the outer layers are really cool and like super fast. Like the 3x3 stage on this is actually fantastic, but in terms of the stuff before that, there are too many lockups for my solving. But yeah, some people seem to like it. Some people, I can understand why they wouldn't like it as well. Rubik's Cuber asks, speaking of the chi shadow, what do you think about primary internals? Do you notice any effects with the cubes? So, I mean, primary internals are just, yeah, primary plastic internals like that. I don't really know if there's any difference between like primary and colored plastic in terms of like, in terms of the material stuff. So I don't really notice much of a difference. I can't read Chinese, but the guy asks, why don't you change Megumin's main cube to X-Men V2M? Actually, yeah, I have changed, like not officially, but like that's the one I've been using recently. So that, yeah, that's what I use now. What's your name as well? If you have like a English name that you use, just because I like referring to people by their name. Cubologist in the chat. It's the first time making one of these, glad to be here. I've been working on my cross to first pair transition for a while now, using basically unlimited inspection. Any other tips? So the biggest, okay, room and yen. Okay, so cross to first pair, unlimited inspection is, yeah, so where you want to get to is, like you say, to be able to inspect for it, and then you don't even need to worry about the transition at all, because you can inspect for it and then do your cross, and then just, I guess just do what you planned in your inspection. Obviously, I'm not sure if you're color neutral or not, but particularly if you're just a single or just a white and yellow cross solver, that might be a little bit tricky to get your inspection down from like completely unlimited to the 15 seconds down to like the 10 kind of safe seconds. So that's the end goal for cross and first pair, is to be able to inspect for it. I guess the steps in between that are, yeah, firstly to work on your unlimited inspection and then slowly get that down. But in situations where you're just solving the cross, in situations where you have a scramble and you're trying to figure out how to get, in situations where you have a scramble and you can only plan the cross and that's it, then yes, I guess you'll have the kind of thing in the back of your mind where it's like, okay, I've only planned the cross here, I really need to like focus and look for my first pair. And I guess the things you can do there, what I would tend to do is generally just look at the top layer. So if you, what do you say? I think where I'm going wrong is I use the RU. I don't exactly follow that comment, sorry. Hold on, let me just continue this incredibly long train of thought. So, RU prime RU trick to fix flipped cross edges, and I can't track pieces while doing that. True. So the RU prime RU trick, you can do alternative, I guess, variations of that. So if you do something like R prime wide U, R prime wide U prime, that preserves, like for example, this top left block. So if you've got an edge or a corner here, it'll be preserved. Or if you do RU prime RU, then the back left block will be preserved. So if you see something there, then I guess try and go with that. Okay, so back to my original, like what I was like ranting on about. So if you're executing your cross and that's the only thing that you've planned, and you're just concentrating on getting the cross right, then what you need to do is, I guess it's not necessarily formulaic, but what I suggest people do is just look at the top layer only and the front two slots only. So once you've finished your cross, just look at the top layer and the front two slots. It might be better for me to do an example. Like very, very, very rarely should you need to look in the back two slots. after you do your cross. So let's say, I do my cross, whatever, and I've got this situation here. Now I can immediately see I've got these pieces. So I'll do them as my first pair. I don't see anything else here. But because I looked at the top and front, like you should only need to look at the top and front to find your first pair, and then I guess go on and keep looking ahead from there. So that's, I guess, the spotting approach is, execute your cross, just look at the top and front layers, and then I guess with enough practice you'll get faster and faster at just at doing that. The, I guess, tracking approach is, so plan your cross solution entirely, and then pick a piece that you're going to follow, or pick two pieces that you think might end up in the top layer and follow them whilst you're doing your cross as best as you can. It might be slightly easier to track an edge piece than a corner piece, but either one is okay as well. The other thing that's really good to recognize is if you can execute your cross using a smaller move set. So a move set that I really like using is FRD. So there's going to be some cases, this is one I like using in competition as well because it's quite safe. But an F, R, and D move set preserves the back left slot, and particularly if you once you're done with F moves, if you're just using R and D moves, then like the entire, I guess, top left block of the cube will be preserved. So if you're just finishing off the cross with like, R, D2, R prime, D prime, then just spend that time looking at this left hand like side of the cube to see what stuff there is. So like reducing the move set is good. What else? Working on cross to first pair transition. Yeah, so ideally you want to get to a stage where you can inspect for it, and then then it doesn't become, then it's like not really too much of a problem. Because for me, like if I get a cross and I can't play my first pair, which is not too often, but if I get to that situation, then yeah, I'm immediately in like panic mode. So yeah, long story short is it's a lot easier to plan it in inspection than plan your cross and then try and solve it. But if you're just a white cross off, then it might be tricky. Juan says, hey, how's it going? Okay, going back to my document, this schedule over here has turned out to be optimistic. I've still got a bunch of stuff to cover. Okay, the other thing you guys might have seen is this West Coast cubing tour business. So I'll just link that in the chat now. That's a video that Chris Olsen put together for a series of competitions in both in California, Nevada, and Washington State. These are going to be before US Nationals. Jay McNeil is going to most of them. Max Park is going to most of them. Kevin Hayes is going to most of them, and I'm going to all of them, luckily enough. And this is something that's happening in July. So if you live on the West Coast, definitely check it out, and it'll be very fun event. So that's another thing that's happened recently is all those comps have come out, and that's going to be kind of my plan for this summer. Going to the US for those US Nationals, and then Taiwan. But I'll probably talk a bit more about that next month and kind of some of the plans there. So that'll be exciting. What are we up to here? Okay, so the next segment is what I've been up to on CubeSkills. As per previously, university has been quite busy. Put up a blog from the Cube for Cambodia competition with all the reconstructions from my solves at that competition. So hopefully that's interesting. And the other thing I've been finishing off and will be finishing off is all the big cube tutorials. So the advanced big cube tutorials, I have 3 more videos left to do. These will be done, like I said, as soon as possible, once I get a bit of spare time for filming. And then after that, I want to do some example solves as well. I think for big cubes in particular, example solves are very, very useful. And so once I finish off the big cubes module, it should be within the next few days. and add some more examples. I think it's going to be quite a comprehensive set of resources, and particularly looking at that like in combination with Kevin Hayes' Tuesday Tips series. It's, yeah, like the Big Cube resources are looking really good at the moment. I think I mentioned this last time, but it's important to get a few different perspectives on Big Cube solves. People do things differently, and we don't always do the same sorts of solutions. So I guess looking at both, Kevin's videos, my videos, is going to be really useful, and I guess broaden your knowledge base. And in terms of what's coming up, I have a blog post which I'll put up after the Big Cubes stuff is up. It was inspired by a question from Mike last month. He asked, what would I tell myself, or something along the lines of, what are some things you knew wish you knew when you started cubing? And so the blog is called 10 Things I Wish I Knew When I Started Cubing, or 10 Things You Should Know When You Start Cubing. And it's kind of more of a beginner blog, but I hope it's a little bit clickbaity, but I think it'll be useful anyway. Useful and interesting. Other stuff coming up. Langston from last month asked about the COLL two-handed finger tricks, as in he asked that last month. I wanted to finish off the Big Cube tutorials before getting into that, but after the Big Cube tutorials and example solves, I'll have COLL finger tricks, BLE finger tricks, and winter variation finger tricks. And then Keith also commented asking about, I guess, more beginner finger triggers, a video with some common beginner finger tricks. So on this list, I have stuff like, RU R prime U prime, R prime FR F prime, RU R prime F prime, R prime U R U prime, RU R prime U. So like really kind of short and simple 4-move triggers, which I guess it might be handy for beginners to have an idea of the different ways you can finger trick those triggers. So if you have anything specific you want to see there, I'm probably going to add that to one of maybe the 4-look last layer module, just to add some finger trick stuff there, because I think that'll be useful. But yeah, Keith kind of requested that. So that stuff will definitely all be out by next month. Yeah, so that's it in terms of video content. So once the finger trick videos are up and the rest of the Big Cubes plus example solves, then it's kind of a clean slate. I'm kind of open to ideas, so feel free to suggest things. That'll be after all that stuff, and probably after I come back from the US. Let me just go back to the chat. Yuanzi says, help Yishao send his greetings. Oh, Yishao, hope you're enjoying watching this. Sorry about the Chinese government banning YouTube. Liam asks, do you and Kevin ever take an average, solve it, record it, and then switch the videos for review? No, me and Kevin are very, very competitive. And so this is something that we definitely wouldn't have done previously, is sending each other video clips and telling each other how to improve, because that's not going to give you much of a competitive advantage. But he did a review thing on his Twitch channel for some of my solves, which was kind of interesting. I guess the thing with me and Kevin is we have very different strengths. So Kevin's by far better than me at solving centers on the 6x6 and the 7x7, but his edge, look ahead, and efficiency, his edge pairing, look ahead, and efficiency is not particularly good, like compared to me and probably Max. But his centers are like way better than me. So we have quite different strengths. Rumin asks, will you give 6x6 Yao tutorials in the future? Recently, trying a 6x6 national record was broken using the Yao method. Yeah, I might add some stuff on YAO for bigger cubes. I think it definitely has potential for 6x6. I'm not sure about 7x7. But I guess the YAO5 method is kind of, well, the YAO method firstly and the YAO5 method are kind of universally applicable in that, you know, you can apply the YAO5 method using the same steps to a 6x6, and there might be some additional complications and tricks and that sort of thing, which might be something useful to get into. I think for me, my reservation with that would be that I have no experience with using YAO5 on the 6x6, and so I would need to spend a fair bit of time getting used to that, and I guess through experimenting and that sort of thing, pick up some tricks. So not too sure there. Sophia says, just saw Kian's right before the stream. 5 things I wish I know. Hold on, what's this comment, Sophia? I think you're referring to a video or something like that. If you want to link the video in the chat, feel free. I guess Kian has some sort of video, 5 things I wish I knew about cubing or competing or something, which sounds interesting. I haven't seen it. Maybe I can steal some ideas from it. And Peter Preston says, sorry if this is a bit off topic, but I like the recent video of your commentary on Jaden's solves. So I think Jay McNeil uploaded a video of an official average where I commented on some of his solves, which I think Sophia asked about last time, if we would do that again, and then Jay told me to do that again because his GoPro was broken. It was on his YouTube channel. It was kind of a low effort video. It was very quick, and I think it's something we'll do for some competitions in the future. So he might do some commentary on my solves, and I might do some more like proper commentary on his solves, not just like trolling. We've got a competition next weekend, so that'll be fun. Might do that there. Rumin asks, are big cube COL algs almost the same as one hand COL? I don't think I've uploaded I don't know if I've necessarily uploaded a big cube COL alg sheet. No, I haven't done that. For big cube COL, I would say the main move set would be similar to big cube OLL and PLL, is you're trying to do as many RUF moves as possible. One-handed COL is more focused on RU and L moveset. So it's a slightly different moveset. I can probably very quickly put together a big cube COL doc. Let me just write that down. Oh no, where's my pen? Let me type it in. Yeah, I can do that. I don't know that they'll be that similar. I imagine big cube COL will be very similar to just two-handed COL. But yeah, you're just trying to get RUF moves as much as you can, because that's the safest move set for big cubes. Otherwise, yeah, feel free to request some content, that sort of thing, and I'll try and get to everything before I head off, which will be at the start of July. And that's something I'll mention as well. Next month's live stream will be towards the end of June, similar to all the previous ones, and then I won't do like a full, like proper Q&A live stream kind of thing for July. I'm heading off on the 7th of July, and so what I'm going to do is just in that week at some stage, in the first week of July at some stage, just sit down and probably just do a practice live stream. So sit down for a few hours, do some practice, and answer some questions from the chat, as opposed to a full scripted thing. Okay, what have we got? All right, so I've got a couple of questions and tips. A couple of questions sent in, and then otherwise feel free to just ask some questions from the chat. I don't think, I don't know if I was thinking I missed a question or something from the chat before, but I think I got to everything. Cubologist again asks, I've been going back and forth between learning COLL or a last slot set like Winter Variation or Magic Wonderful. Any recommendations on where to go after full C-flop? after OLL and PLL, I think, yeah, like you say, the simplest one and the one which will probably add a bit of value to your solves is winter variation. COLL, they both have their pros and cons, and particularly if you're like me and don't necessarily like learning algorithms all that much, they have their pros and cons. So COLL, if you don't know like CLL on 2x2, or if you haven't had any experience with recognizing COLL cases, so differentiating between like diagonal corner swaps, adjacent corner swaps, that sort of thing, learning COLL and learning like not even the algs, just learning the recognition for COLL is very, very beneficial. COLL comes in handy for one-handed solves as well. So COLL is quite beneficial there. If it's for two-handed solving, like COLL is not that beneficial. I guess the reason you would learn COLL is for one hand, potentially big cubes, and also just to get used to the recognition system for COLL. In terms of just adding benefits to your two-handed solves, like winter variation is an easier algorithm set. There's less algs, less cases. The recognition is easier, and so you're going to get more of an immediate payoff learning some winter variation stuff. What else is there? There's VLS, which is, yeah, like Magic Wonderful is, yeah, a VLS subset, which is easier to recognize, and that is also going to be probably quite beneficial as well. And I guess definitely some of the Magic Wonderful cases are going to be easier to recognize than winter variation. So it's up to you. I think like learning sprinklings of winter variation and Magic Wonderful are a good start into kind of last slot methods. Or if you're more interested in learning COLL recognition, which I think is quite a valuable skill to have, then by all means go on to COLL. I wouldn't say there's like a specific one you should definitely go to. It's probably more up to you. So sorry for actually not answering your questions of which one to learn, but hopefully I've provided like the pros and cons, or more specifically like the pros of each set. Liam asks, am I coming to the Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Illinois region this summer? Unfortunately not. Sorry. Maybe one day, if they have a World Championships or like a US National Championships or something there, then I'll definitely be there. Broomin asks, scramble with R2, U prime, R2, U, R2. R2, U prime, R2, U, R2. How do I deal with one of the F2L? Okay. So this is the case that we have. So R2 U wide prime, R2 U R2 U wide prime, R2 U wide, R2 is the setup for this. I've just misoriented some last layer edges just to make the recognition a bit easier. So I've got this corner and this edge here, this corner in its slot, and this edge back here. And we're holding it at this angle. So probably what I would do from this situation is, yeah, I would do something like L prime, U, L, U prime, L prime, U, L, and then insert. Obviously this is, yeah, quite a tricky situation. It's not something that's going to come up particularly often. Ideally, you don't really want to be ending up with F2L slots that need to be solved diagonally across from one another. So where it's possible, this isn't always easy as well, but I generally try to avoid ending up with two diagonal slots as my last two slots, because it can lead to the most awkward situations in F2L. But yeah, for a situation like this, I would probably go for this edge and this corner, and just do L, U prime, L, L, U, it's hard to do it from reverse. L prime U, L U prime, L prime U, L, and then insert like that. The other thing I would try and do there is the corner that is solved in that scenario. The corner that's solved in the back right slot, ideally, no, not in the back right slot, in the front left slot, the corner that's solved, I want to try and change it from a solved corner into something else, because having a solved corner and then an edge in the top layer is generally not a case which is that good. Juan asks, most of the VLS forces into easy OLLs. So VLS, yeah, as Cubeologist says, VLS is an algorithm subset where you have your last F2L pair solved, attached, the corner and edge, and you just have an easy insertion, and VLS is an algorithm set which skips OLL from that stage. Liam asks, how do you lubricate your main? It's a good question. My 3x3 main at the moment is the Angstrom SM sent by the Cubicle, and since I got it, I haven't lubed it. And since last comp, it's actually got a little bit dry, so I should lube it with probably some Angstrom at some stage, but I'm not really an expert in that. That's what I've done for my main. I've received it and then used it. I haven't lubricated it yet. Okay, so yeah, a couple of questions sent in. The first one was regarding to Roux one-handed solving, asking if I'll switch to the Roux method for one-handed solving. I think for me, like, firstly, I'm not very familiar with, like, I haven't spent much time at all practicing the Roux method, and so to completely just like overhaul everything and switch to the Roux method for, I guess, one event is probably not something that I'm going to spend my time doing, just because, whilst I do think that it has now, like, there's definitely like really solid evidence now that it has more potential than CFOP for one-handed solving. Something like for a CFOP solver who's been solving for a very long time to then like practice and switch to the Roux method for one-handed solving, I feel like that's an incredibly hard thing. I do think there may be people in the future who use CFOP as their main method for two-handed solving and then Roux as their main method for one-handed solving. Probably not within the next couple of years, but potentially down the track, because some people might not want to switch to Roux for two-handed solving, because there are definitely cons to that, but Roux for two-handed solving is also fantastic. So yeah, for me, I'm not going to spend the time to switch, just because it'd be, yeah, I don't even want to know how long it would take me to like really get solid at Roux. So yeah, I think I definitely think in the future, like, people might have to specialize more in one-handed solving and use the Roux method, as opposed to kind of more generalists like Max and me and that sort of thing, who just kind of are good at CFOP on two-hand and then, you know, just work on one-handed turning. So that'll be rather interesting to see how that plays out in the next kind of 3 to 5 years. See how the rankings go for one-handed. Because yeah, I don't think that being fast at two-handed will necessarily translate anywhere near as easily as it has previously. Okay. R asks, I hope more cross finger tricks, how to use wide R and U moves. So in terms of wide U moves, the main area where I'd use wide U moves is just to finish off the cross. So, you know, if your cross is off by a D or something, and for whatever reason your hands are not in the position to do a D move very well, for example with your ring fingers, something like that, but they are in a position to do a wide U move, then that's when I would probably tend to use a wide U move, is based on the finger positioning. Something that's more advanced is like using the wide move to influence where the F2L slots end up, but that's, yeah, probably a bit more advanced. So probably the other area where I'd use wide U moves is for something like, you know, wide R prime, U, wide R prime, like that. Wide R prime, sorry, R prime, wide U, wide R prime, like that. Those are really, really quick. In terms of wide R moves, the place where I use wide R moves is, I think generally speaking, is if I have to do R and L moves like kind of simultaneously. It's not really possible on 3x3 to, you know, do stuff like that and then, wait, it's not really possible on 3x3 to do R and L moves simultaneously. Because on the one hand, if you're doing an R move, you have to grip the left-hand side of the cube. And if you're doing an L move, you have to grip the right-hand side of the cube. And so if I'm in a situation where I need to use R and L moves simultaneously, so let's say I need to do, you know, an L2 R prime, then for me it's much easier to do the L2 as kind of a wide R2 and then regrip with my right hand and then do the R move. So I mainly use wide R moves when I have to do an L and R move simultaneously. Trying to think if there's too many other situations where I do it. I guess stuff like wide R prime, U R. If you have a edge piece here and needs to go in the back, something like wide R prime, U R might be useful. Those are probably the main situations for intermediate solvers where wide R moves are useful. Oh crap, I just sprayed water on myself. Cubeologist asks, would you like some of the angstrom lubes or do you already have them? Yeah, Phil messaged me the other day and asked if I had, or we were chatting or something, and he asked if I had angstrom lube, and I said I would have a look because I just have a ridiculous number of like packages and everything like that, and I haven't had a look yet, so I'll let you know. Liam asks, how do I finger trick the JB permutation? So I have, if you go into the PLL, where are we going? 3x3 algorithms, PLL algorithms, if you go into this module, I have finger trick videos for all the PLLs, so that'll have my finger tricks for the JB permutation. But people definitely finger trick the JB permutation differently sometimes. People do different moves for F prime. So some people do F prime with their right thumb. Some people do it with their left index. Some people do it with their right index. So it's kind of up to you, and you can chop and choose. So Chris asks, what are my thoughts on the whole 6x6 world record? I talked about this briefly at the start, but just for the sake of it, I'll go over again. My thoughts are that I don't think that the regulation, I can understand why the regulation that they have exists is basically, it's just to remove like any ambiguity, make sure people aren't touching cameras or like potentially cheating. But I really don't feel like, I feel like the regulation, like, I don't know how to phrase this. Yeah, like, were there any instances of people trying to cheat by touching cameras before there was this regulation? Like, I'm not sure when it was there, but like, I feel like the chance of people trying to cheat by somehow touching or interacting with the camera is much lower than the chance of accidents like this, Max's solves and Alexandra Collier getting DNF'd, and I'm sure there's other people who've gotten DNF'd for the same sort of thing. So I feel like it's not, like, I understand why WCA doesn't want to have like at the delegate discretion kind of regulations, because those are, yeah, kind of annoying, and people have been like saying, oh, the regulation sucks, and then people will say, oh, well, how can we improve it? And I've tried to think as well, and I'm sure many people have spent time thinking about this on how to improve it, and I don't know that there's an easy solution. What I would prefer to just see the regulation removed, and then obviously if people are trying to cheat with their cameras, the judge will see and just call the delegate and they'll be fixed. But I've never heard of anyone trying to cheat with their camera. So yeah, I think it was trying to kind of fix a problem that didn't necessarily exist. So that, I can understand why it's there. And sadly, with Max's solve specifically, it seems like there was already precedent for that sort of thing to be DNF'd. So unfortunately, even though it's a world record, and even though the solve was completely legitimate, I guess the precedent was that those sorts of things are DNF'd. So it is what it is. But like I said, I'm sure he'll just get it again today, because he's got around a 6x6 today. So I'm picking I've got a 121 average, maybe a 117 single. We'll see. Showdown asks, would I recommend learning full OLCP for one hand? Full OLCP for one hand. Yeah, I think if you can find, I don't know that OLCP has been well developed just yet, but I feel like if you can find solid algorithms for it, then generally speaking, it's probably a good idea. But that being said, there's a lot of OLCP cases. Actually, what's the number of OLCP cases? Let me just Google this. Yeah, okay, 331 cases. So that's a lot. I think you'll get faster. I think you'll get faster by practicing, learning stuff like T2GLL, working on your one-hand turning more easily than you will by learning OLCP. So in terms of the trade-off, you have a decision to make. You can practice, or you can learn OLCP, or you can do other sorts of stuff. Even some of the top one-handed solvers, most of the top CFOP one-handed solvers, don't use full OLCP. They just use a few algorithms here and there. So learning it would be a big feat. So if it's a matter of choosing between alternatives, I don't think learning full OLCP is worth it just yet. Maybe if you get to 10 or 11 seconds or sub 10, then it might be worth it, but we'll see. Let me just check if I've got anything else. One more question from the email was from Fahim. He says, firstly, I'm struggling to get sub 50 on Yao. Do you have any tips for me? This is just a general comment on I guess questions like this, is that if you're trying to break some sort of barrier, or if you're trying to improve in a speed solve and you want the most I guess scripted and thought out tips from me, then the best place to go, the best place for scripted comprehensive tips, is literally just go to the appropriate module on CubeSkills, and that's where I guess my best stuff is. That's why the videos exist there. So I guess for you to get to sub 50, that's probably in the advanced 4x4 module. There's a bunch of tips there, there's a bunch of example solves, and so if you either haven't watched those or have skimmed past them and maybe necessarily haven't implemented all the kind of techniques there, and it might just be a barrier that you just need to practice and overcome, but those are, I guess, all my solve specific tips for improving to sub 50 with Yao are all in the advanced 4x4 module. yeah, I've just written a few dot points here and there, like, in inspection, try and plan your first center and at least your second 1x2 bar, or try and plan your first 2 centers in inspection to get to sub 50. First 3 cross edges are really something that just improves with practice and spotting pieces. Like this is, yeah, first 3 cross edges is just super hard. For last 4 centers, something that I see very often, and also I think for the first 3 cross edges is for people using Yao, they're rotating along the x-axis far too much. So try to minimize your rotations that you're doing for the first 3 cross edges and also for the last 4 centers. For the last cross edge, you want to be flexible with your solution, so be able to solve the last cross edge in a few different ways, either on the E slice, the M slice, solve it efficiently as well. So don't, if you have 2 cross pieces in the top layer, don't just insert them into the middle layer and then slice to pair it up. Efficiency there. For edges, I think something that's really important, a little bit important, is turning speed for 4x4 edges, because look ahead, once you get down to the last 5 edges, particularly the last 2 and then the last 3 and the 2 before that, you kind of just want to be turning super quickly. Because hopefully look ahead for solving 2 edges and then the last 3 is going to be fairly straightforward compared to other stuff. I guess something else is, like, if you get to last layer and you have OLL parity, what you want to do is try and predict your OLL before executing the OLL parity. So that's the reason why most people choose to execute OLL parity with, if they have one oriented edge, they like to execute OLL parity such that it creates 2 oriented edges across from each other, as opposed to the OLL. So yeah, try and predict OLL before executing your OLL parity so that you don't have to do like 2 looks there. Don't give yourself bad PLL cases by doing PLL parity algorithms. So like do PLL parity smarter in order to avoid bad PLL cases. And yeah, like that's just a few dot points that I wrote down. But the best stuff will just be in tutorials. Okay, Rumin asks, what about TPerm plus U2 AUF? So, ow, I've got a cut on my finger, which is kind of annoying. So there's a TPerm plus U2 AUF algorithm. You can just do like most of the TPerm, and then before the final 5 moves, you can do U, F prime, L prime, U, L. So before the final 5 moves of the TPerm, you can do U, F prime, L prime, U, L. This is something that I used to do, but now I feel like just doing the TPerm and then U2 AUF afterwards is probably going to be a little bit safer for me. Like, I think that if I execute perfectly the alternative finish, then it could be slightly faster, but probably on average in a competition setting, I'm going to be doing the TPerm plus U2 standard execution on average faster. Chris asks, what was the reasoning for staffing Nats this year? Thought that was really interesting. For me, it was just kind of to try and get a new experience. So Chris is referring to going to be on staff at US Nationals. Yeah, for me, it was just a different experience at one of these competitions. Like when I went to Euros in 2016 and Worlds last year, like, I don't know, particularly for Euros 2016, kind of helping out and staffing at a competition where I wasn't like, too stressed out about performance was something that looked fun. And so at a US Nationals, I guess it's mainly for US competitors, so I'm not, like, I want to do well, but it's not like end of the world if I don't. So yeah, for me it was a new experience. I think definitely at some stage in the future, I'm going to be like far more control, I'm going to have far more responsibility for Speedcubing Australia. Sebastian's already trying to like make me president of Speedcubing Australia, so I need to get probably some more experience in handling major competitions and like potentially seeing how the US run bigger competitions as well as we get bigger competitions here in Australia. I don't know, yeah, it just seems like fun. And then Reeman asks, what's your total amount of 3x3 solves since you started cubing? Could you make an estimation? 1 billion. Total amount of 3x3 solves since I started cubing. It's a good question. I'm trying to think on average how many I do per day. Let's say on average for 50 per day. Sounds maybe 40 per day. 40 times 10 times 365. That's only 146,000. Maybe it'll be a bit more. 50, 182,000. Yeah, no, I don't think I've done. I don't think I've done a million. Definitely not. I would definitely have done less than 500,000. I would say most likely less than 200,000. Probably somewhere between 150,000 and 250,000 is my guess, but I really have no idea. It's hard. Peter says, I forgot the leap year days. It's an estimate. R asks, how do you deal with injuries of Rubik's wrist and finger? So I've never had any serious problems with my wrists or fingers for speed solving. I guess when I started out doing one-handed solving, my hand would get quite tired, and if my arm ever got sore during practice or anything like that, I would basically just stop. Like, there's no point in practicing when it's just going to like hurt your arms or fingers or whatever even more. There was a period a long time ago where, like, due to practicing a lot, I had kind of tension in my forearm. And so I went to a physio and basically just got a massage there, and they just said, like, the muscles in there were just really, really tight from like gripping and turning cubes and doing that so much. They just said, like, take it easy, and if it ever gets sore again, just stop. And so I've had that like maybe a couple of times, but nothing too serious. Basically, whenever anything is sore, I just stop cubing. It kind of seems like the sensible thing to do. All right. See you later, Chris. I'm just going to be finishing up in a few minutes as well. So hope you enjoyed. Looking forward to watching some of your live streams on Twitch. I think I missed the last one and then tuned in for like a little bit. I wasn't free at the time when you were doing your 2x2 to 4x4 relay. It looked like good fun, but yeah. And then last question from Yuanzi. Any plans to compete in the UK? No concrete plans at the moment. I did last year before Worlds, so that was super fun competition actually. It was really, really good, but like, we'll see. I'm not too sure. After the US trip and the Asian Championships, I'll need to figure out what's going on in terms of cubing schedule. All right, I think that's basically it. That's all I've got in terms of questions and stuff sent in. If you guys have any more questions in the chat, let me know. All right, Liam asks, do you have any drills to be ambidextrous for hours? I'm starting piano to help with left hand, but I need more help. So in terms of being ambidextrous, like, some people when they try to execute an algorithm, so say they've been doing their algorithm with their right hand for a very long time, some people, what they'll do is try and do the same algorithm mirroring it with their left hand, but they'll use like completely different finger tricks for their left hand, when in reality what you want to be trying to do is use the exact same finger tricks that you do with your right hand, but just do it on your left hand. So like that's one major tip is, don't just do the moves, like really concentrate on mirroring the exact finger tricks that you do on your right hand onto your left hand. And then from there, I imagine it's literally just practice, like just doing it a lot. One drill which is quite fun, and I've done this a few times, like racing people, is if you get a scrambled cube, try and solve it whereby you're not allowed to use R moves at all. So like it's really hard. So just try and solve, like do an entire solve without using any R moves. And so, you know, you'll have to do a fair few like inefficient rotations, but basically what you're trying to do is just get used to turning quickly with your left hand. Some algorithms probably won't work, and a H-prime doesn't really make sense. But yeah, and for that drill, sorry, without using R turns. So you can use your right hand for like U moves and stuff like that, but without using any R moves. And that's a way to, I guess, potentially just practice turning with your left hand and making that a bit more like automatic. All right. Yeah, so that's about it for this evening. If you guys have any more questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the chat now, and I'll get to them. Otherwise, thanks for joining in. I hope this has been entertaining, useful, all that sort of stuff. If you guys have any questions at any other time as well, feel free to email me, and I'll get back to you ASAP. If it's about a specific thing in the video or anything like that, feel free to comment on the videos as well, and I'll get back to you. Been a little bit slow getting back to some video comments recently. Sometimes have had a couple of poor response times over 24 hours, which is probably like for the response time, it's not very good. Doesn't seem like there's anything in the chat. I'll give it another minute. Let me just check back on CubeSkills to see who ended up winning the Indian nationals. Vijay Kishore. It's pretty good. 8.59 average. Yeah, no, that's about it. So thanks for joining in, guys. I'll see you next time. Yeah, happy cubing.